The email from Columbia University's admissions office had been sitting untouched in my inbox for 3 days, like a wound no one dared to touch, just waiting to burst open. I knew exactly what they needed: verification for the tuition account. An account my grandmother Lucille had set up the day I was born. A gift for the future. A promise for a dream. But by last Tuesday, that account had vanished. I stood in the kitchen, afternoon light slanting across the wedding flowers my mom was carefully arranging on the long wooden table. Pale pink imported peonies lay between the wedding menu catalogs and a cost planning sheet filled with tangled numbers. "Mom, we need to talk about the tuition fund," I said, my voice as dry as sandpaper. She didn't look up, just nodded slightly, her eyes fixed on the bouquet in her hands. "Ashleen, we've been over this. Ashley's wedding is in 6 weeks. These Oregon flowers aren't cheap, you know." I swallowed hard, trying to steady my tone. "But that's college money." Grandma Lucille spelled it out clearly in her will. "Oh, not this again." Her voice sliced through mine. "You're always the smart one, Evelyn. You'll get scholarships or take out loans like normal people. You're not a child anymore." Right then, the front door swung open. The clack of high heels echoed through the hallway as Ashley breezed in, scented with expensive perfume. Her arms were weighed down with shopping bags from luxury brands. My mother lit up like someone had just flipped on the power after a storm. "Oh my gosh, what did you find, Ash?" she squealed, quickly standing to grab one of the bags. "Show me everything." I stood frozen, clutching the university paperwork like an uninvited guest at someone else's celebration. "Mom, I was still working on those scholarship forms." "Oh, sorry," Ashley chirped, not a hint of remorse in her eyes. "But look at these silk robes, personalized for each bridesmaid. So chic, right?" I slipped back to my room in silence, leaving behind laughter and my mom's excited gasp over what she called a steal at $30 a piece. My college dream had just been buried under a pile of satin and lace. That night, I knocked on my dad's office door. Yellow lamplight reflected off his glasses as he sat surrounded by banking paperwork and wedding decor plans. "Dad, can you explain something about the tuition account? Why it's empty?" He looked up and sighed like I'd just interrupted something far more important. "Evelyn, you're resourceful, you'll figure it out. But Ashley's wedding needs to be perfect. You know how the Bensons are." "What about me? Don't I deserve a future too?" "Don't be selfish," he said flatly. "Family means prioritizing the right things." I laughed, bitter and voiceless. Family? What kind of family calls stealing their youngest daughter's future a priority? Still in my hands was the last birthday card Grandma Lucille had sent before she passed, her elegant handwriting still clear. "My dear Evelyn, I've always believed you'll do something great, and I've prepared everything, just in case." Those final 3 words cracked open like thunder. Just in case. Just in case what? What had she seen coming? I sat motionless in the dark of the small room above the garage, still referred to as my room, though I was 17 and college-bound. The only light came from my phone screen, where unread glowed under Columbia's subject line. I didn't open it, couldn't. On the bookshelf beside my bed was a small locked wooden box. Inside were the things I'd kept from Grandma Lucille: a yellowing pearl necklace, the first letter she wrote me in 5th grade, and a business card worn at the edges. Printed on it, "Melinda Crowley, attorney at law." I had never called her. Mom used to say, "Your grandmother never understood reality. Don't let all that legal nonsense ruin the family." But now, I had nothing left to lose. I crept downstairs while Ashley and her bridesmaids were shrieking over cake samples. A pop song blared from the Bluetooth speaker. Every sound hit like a chisel to the little trust I had left in them. I stepped out onto the back patio and dialed the number on the card. 1 ring, 2. Then a woman's voice answered, sharp but not cold. "Melinda Crowley's office, this is Deborah, how can I help you?" "Hi, my name is Evelyn Monroe. My grandmother was Lucille Monroe." A pause. "Please hold a moment." Ellie breathed. "Evelyn, A different voice now, lower, composed, the kind that's heard more winters than I could count. Lucille told me if her granddaughter ever called, not to ask why. I think the college fund she left was taken. My mom used it for my sister's wedding, but I remember Grandma saying she protected it somehow. Billed across the counter. I can't afford to pay you back. What? Couldn't you save anything else on the phone? Can you come to my office tomorrow at 8:30 a.m.? Bring any documents related to the fund. And, Evelyn, yes? Don't tell anyone. I nodded, even though I knew she couldn't see it. That evening, I sat alone in the backyard, holding an unfinished scholarship notebook. Laughter echoed from the living room like a party I'd never been invited to. I thought of something she once wrote in an old Christmas card. Justice is never in a hurry. It only needs time and a good memory. I couldn't sleep. At dawn, I left through the back door, walking across the stone patio where Ashley once hosted her engagement party. The Uber picked me up at exactly 7:45 a.m. The driver, Julian, asked if I was headed to an interview. I gave a faint smile and said, something like that. The office building stood along Jefferson Avenue, nestled among rows of glass towers. On the 12th floor, the Crowley law firm overlooked a park, its trees bowed under the wind. Melinda waited in a paneled room lined with oak, her desk spotless. Have a seat, Evelyn, she said, pointing to the chair across from her. I handed her the folder, the fund verification letter, a copy of Grandma's will, the latest bank statement. She flipped through the pages as if examining the veins of my life. You're right, the account's been fully drained, but... She paused, pulling out another file marked Private, Trust Clause. Lucille didn't just set up a tuition fund, she attached a condition. Anyone who interferes with or misuses that fund will be permanently blocked from accessing the rest of her estate. I froze. You mean my mother and father? Can't touch a single cent of the remaining assets unless they restore the tuition fund in full. And, I'm afraid, her eyes met mine. They've already spent it. I leaned back, heart pounding like distant war drums. Is there any way they can reverse this? No, unless I sign a waiver? Melinda narrowed her eyes. If they pressure you to sign anything, call me immediately. Not a single word should leave your hand without me present. I left the office with the sun fully up. Cars zipped down Jefferson Avenue as if the world hadn't shifted. But to me, the axis had tilted. My phone buzzed, a message from my mother. Ashley needs you home early. The photographer wants to reschedule. I looked at the message, then at the office tower behind me. A decision had already been etched into my spine. I replied, I'm busy today. Then turned off my phone. Not out of anger, but because I finally understood. The people we love the most are often the ones who hurt us the deepest. That doesn't mean they get to keep doing it. I got home at exactly 5:57 p.m. The sky was still bright, but the house looked heavier than usual, like it was hiding something too big to contain. Wedding music thumped from the living room, nearly drowned out by my mom's sharp voice on the phone. Clipped, frantic, each word slicing the air. As I stepped through the door, I caught her saying, No, listen, that money has to be returned by Friday or the wedding's over. I don't care what the trust clause says. My relatives are already flying in from Seattle. My father sat slumped on the sofa, pale-faced, clutching the phone like he could force the bank's answer to change by gripping harder. Ashley was still choosing between two kinds of rose-scented candles, not even bothering to look up. Evelyn, my mother snapped, spinning toward me. What did you do? I dropped my jacket on a chair and said nothing. You went to see Melinda Crowley, didn't you? Her voice pitched higher. What did you dig up? You made them freeze your father's accounts. It wasn't me, I said evenly. It was you. She stood, heels pounding against the hardwood floor. You're destroying this family over some numbers in a tuition fund? Not numbers. I lifted my head. My future. The promise Grandma Lucille wrapped into every cent. The thing you erased for embroidered table runners. My father spoke slowly, weariness sinking into every line of his face. If you met with Melinda, then you know the clause. I do, I nodded. Anyone who misuses the fund loses access to the rest of her estate until every dollar is paid back. Ashley finally looked up, eyes wide. You mean the honeymoon money? Gone, I said, staring directly at them. Unless you return the full $82,000 you took. Silence thickened. Evelyn, my mom said, choosing her words like stepping through glass. You can. Lift the clause. Just sign the waiver. Everything goes back to normal. Ashley gets her wedding, and we finish the rest. I'm not signing anything. You're really that selfish? I'm being realistic. I pulled a printed page from my coat pocket, clause 4.3 from Melinda's file. I placed it on the table. He saw this coming. Saw what? Ashley's voice cracked, nervous tension flickering in her eyes. That you'd always be picked first. Right or wrong. That I'd carry the weight quietly. But Grandma Lucille wasn't going to let it go on forever. My father scoffed. She didn't understand what a proper wedding means. But she understood fairness. The room held its breath. Then my mom started crying, hands trembling, as she clutched her head. What do we do now? She whispered. I didn't answer. None of them realized this was no longer about money. This was the moment I stepped out of being the agreeable daughter. And that loss of control, that terrified them more than any frozen account ever could. I stepped out of the room, leaving behind the chaotic arguing. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A message from Melinda. Legal status confirmed. No one can interfere without your permission. If they pressure you, let me know. I replied with just 2 words. Understood. The upstairs was the quietest place in the house. I sat on the floor of my room, leaning against the bed. Under the desk lamp, I reopened Columbia's email for the first time in nearly a week. Congratulations, Evelyn Monroe! We are pleased to inform you that you have been admitted to the Bachelor's Program in Literature and Media for the fall semester. Deadline to confirm enrollment, April 15th. My hands rested on the keyboard, unmoving. Downstairs, Mom was talking about the non-refundable flower deposit, and Ashley was sobbing over being denied the upgrade from the gold wedding package to platinum. Another message popped up on my phone. Evelyn, I'm sorry, but if you don't help, we lose everything. I powered off my phone. 3 days after the confrontation, the atmosphere at home thickened like winter fog. The landline rang repeatedly before going silent, as my mother answered in hushed tones in the dining room, where warm yellow light couldn't soften the tension that clung to every corner. Ashley didn't laugh anymore. She barely left the living room, where piles of unsent invitations, untouched lace, and a giant poster read, Ashley Monroe's Dream Wedding, June 5th. I could hear Dad calling the bank from his office downstairs. We're direct heirs. How can the accounts be frozen over one small fund? I quietly brewed coffee, standing behind the divider, catching every clipped word between him and the bank representative. We can't process your request until the misused funds are fully reimbursed, Mr. Monroe. That clause is non-negotiable. The soft clink of porcelain on china broke his sentence. Mom stood behind me, holding the latest statement, her face blank like someone lost in a desert. Ellen, she said without a greeting, you need to sign the waiver. I took a sip of coffee, my voice steady. No need to go in circles, Mom. If I sign, the accounts reopen. We're about to lose the house, she said, sinking into a kitchen chair, head in hands. We're 4 months behind on bills. The credit cards are frozen for maxing out. The bank already scheduled a property evaluation before foreclosure. I stayed silent. The wedding's planned, guests booked, the hotel's partially paid. Canceling now would make the Bensons think Ashley's been abandoned. I set the coffee cup on the table. Edifying all of that matters more than my tuition? Stop twisting the knife, she exhaled. I was wrong. But if you stay stubborn, We won't survive this. I stared at her. The woman in front of me wasn't the one who used to read bedtime stories, but someone begging her child to fix mistakes she had made herself. I'm not being stubborn. You chose to spend money that wasn't yours. Ashley's footsteps echoed. She appeared in a silk pajama set, hair messy. Could you stop playing the victim, Evelyn? We're all hurting. I crossed my arms. You're upset over a luxury dress. I lost my shot at college. Don't make me compare the two. I'm not asking for much, she snapped. I just want to get married without everyone whispering behind my back. Then use your own money. She stepped closer, eyes shiny with tears. What do you want? An apology? A torn-up wedding dress so you can feel justice was served? I want respect, at least equal to the $49 bridesmaid gifts you ordered online. The room cracked like a mirror under pressure. Dad appeared holding a slim folder, eyes bloodshot. Evelyn, you're destroying this family. All over some cheap pride? No, I said, locking eyes with him, because real dignity means not being everyone's emergency wallet. Mom buried her face in her hands. Ashley grabbed her phone and stormed off. Dad stood frozen, speechless. I walked onto the back porch. Birds chirped from the wooden fence. Inside me wasn't anger anymore, just something lighter, deeper, like pulling out a thorn that had been embedded for years. My phone buzzed, a message from Melinda's office. They just submitted an urgent request to unfreeze the retirement account. The bank denied it. Their financial situation is officially critical. I typed back, "Send me the formal notice. Maybe they'll believe it when it's in writing." That night, I overheard Mom calling Aunt Vanessa, her voice cracking while asking for help covering legal fees. Dad contacted another bank, inquiring about refinancing options. Ashley slammed her door after a video call with her best friend, screaming, and say, all Evelyn's fault. I sat in my room, laptop open, my University of Chicago scholarship application waiting to be finalized. Outside was chaos, the pounding at the door from past mistakes. In here was silence. And a future I was determined to hold onto. They used to think I was the easiest one to sway. They forgot one thing. The quiet ones eventually learn how never to back down. Saturday morning, I returned from my shift at the local library and found a thick envelope on the kitchen table. My name was scribbled on it in Dad's familiar handwriting. I didn't have to open it to know it was the waiver. Again, I didn't touch it. By noon, I was hanging laundry in the backyard when Ashley stepped outside, heels sinking slightly into the grass. She wore a white silk robe, hair pinned up, lips glossed like she still lived in a bridal magazine. Despite the house teetering on foreclosure, "You've got 2 minutes," she said, arms crossed. "We need to talk." I nodded and clipped a shirt onto the line. "How long are you going to play the martyr, Evelyn?" she asked, lips tight. "Out of spite? To watch us fall apart?" "No," I replied without turning around, "because I refuse to let people walk all over me and call it family." "You don't get it," Ashley stepped closer, her voice rising. "This wedding isn't just a party, it's honor. It's our connection to the Benson family. It's everything we've invested in." "We?" I turned to face her. "The whole family bet my future on a bedazzled wedding gown? No one asked me anything. No one cared how I felt. They just took. Quietly and consistently, like I'm some mute ATM. Ashley let out a sharp laugh, her eyes flashing with something that felt dangerously close to contempt. "Mama's right. You always blow things out of proportion. It doesn't matter where you go to school as long as you try. But no, you chose to play the victim. I chose to stand for what's right. I tightened my fists, keeping my tone level. And you chose to ignore consequences to keep living in your silk-wrapped fantasy. How much do you want to sign?" She stepped back, squinting. $5,000? 10? We can make it work if we have to. I don't sell my self-respect. Ashley moved in, the faint scent of her perfume trailing behind each step. "You're so selfish, Evelyn. You're not the only one living in this house. Mom hasn't slept in weeks, Dad's drinking again, and I'm getting questioned by my fiancé because of all this financial mess. You're tearing this family apart." I sighed, meeting her eyes. "No one has to live in chaos if they think before they act. You always think you're better than everyone, don't you?" I said nothing. The wind rustled the trees in the backyard, and somewhere upstairs a window creaked open. Mom was watching. Ashley bit her lip, then suddenly swung her hand. A slap, sharp and precise, like a gunshot down an empty alley. Pain stung across my left cheek, but I didn't flinch. I kept my eyes locked on hers, unblinking. I saw her hand freeze mid-air, then pull back. Not from regret, but from fear. "Thank you," I said softly, "for confirming I'm not crazy." Grandma once told me, "People reveal who they are when they lose control. Today, you just did." Mom appeared in the doorway, face pale. She rushed into the yard, eyes glassy. "She didn't mean to. She's just stressed." No one forced her to raise her hand. I turned to her. "I used to believe if I behaved, I'd be loved. I was wrong. A real family doesn't demand silence in exchange for existence. A real family doesn't make their child pay for adult failures." "Evelyn," Mom collapsed onto the wooden bench by the fence. "We can't recover without you." "I begged you to keep my tuition fund. I emailed the acceptance letter. I showed you the academic plan. Did you listen?" She said nothing. Her gaze dropped, like she was seeing something for the first time that had always been right there. I turned away and walked back into the house. On the stairs, I saw Dad standing at the landing, still holding a glass of untouched whiskey. No scolding, no commands, just a man witnessing the cracks he helped create, with no clue how to fix them. I walked straight to my room, shut the door, and locked it. In the mirror, the red mark on my cheek stood out. But it didn't make me feel weak. It felt like the last scar from a life of manipulation, finally severed. An email from the University of Chicago had arrived. Partial scholarship approved. The rest I could cover with library shifts and tutoring in math. I hit confirm enrollment, no hesitation. August in Boston still carried the heavy scent of late summer. I wheeled my suitcase into Emerson College's dorm, where I'd been admitted to the Applied Communication program, after changing my decision. A full-ride scholarship had just been confirmed via email 4 days earlier. They called me an exceptional candidate with unique circumstances. I just called it life. My small single room overlooked the courtyard, with worn wooden floors but clean and walls painted in soft eggshell. Not big, not fancy, but every square foot was mine. Earned, not given. I shelved my books by paper scent, from fresh ink to yellowed age. One corner I kept for Grandma Lucille's keepsakes: a silver pocket watch, a soft-cover copy of Little Women, and a handwritten letter from her, framed next to my bedside lamp. At Emerson's library, I started my afternoon shifts 3 days a week. The third-floor reading room was mostly empty, just the hum of old air conditioning and quiet typing from students scrambling to finish midterm outlines. The job was simple: reshelve materials, help visitors find books, scan checkouts. The rhythm helped me heal. Inch by inch. One Wednesday afternoon, while shelving a set of media theory books, I spotted one with her name printed inside. Lucille Monroe, contributor. I gently traced the letters, eyes stinging. She had quietly contributed to this school's academic work. Maybe she had picked Emerson for reasons deeper than I ever knew, and I had never been the only one she was preparing for a fight. That night, I wrote a thank you letter to the scholarship office. Not a pre-written template, but something honest. Line by line. I talked about my grandmother, the things I had lost, and what I was slowly, deliberately trying to rebuild. My phone buzzed just as I hit send, a message from Brian, a friend from my part-time library job back home. Heard you left. Everyone misses you. Want to write something for the library blog? Folks still follow it. Huh, I typed back. If I can share the story about my tuition fund, I'll write. Not to complain, but so someone else out there won't feel alone if they're in the same boat. He replied almost instantly. Then do it. Your story deserves to be heard. I opened my laptop. The title popped into my head. I survived my family taking everything from me, and I don't regret making them face it. In the first paragraph, I didn't talk about what I lost. I wrote about reclaiming something no one could ever take away: dignity. A few days later, the post went live on the student blog. I hadn't expected it to spread. Over 200 shares, dozens of comments from strangers, teachers, students, even mothers who had once been denied support for being unrealistic. One comment made me stop and stare. I was the kid my family chose to ignore. Thank you for saying what I never could. I didn't respond, but I saved it. During my third week at school, I was invited to speak at an internal seminar titled The Power of Personal Voice in Academic Communities. Instead of reading a speech, I opened the envelope Grandma Lucille had left, the one I hadn't dared open before leaving. Inside was a short note, just one line. No one is born to serve someone else's selfishness. If you're reading this, maybe you just escaped it. The room fell silent. I folded the paper, smiled, and said, I'm not here to tell a sad story. I'm here to prove you don't have to carry someone else's burden to be considered a good person. After the talk, a freshman came up to me, eyes red-rimmed. I didn't think you'd speak that directly. My family's pushing me to quit my major because it won't make money. I was about to drop out, but now I think I'll fight. I placed a hand on his shoulder. As long as you choose to stand by yourself, win or lose, you're living honestly. That evening, I sat by the window, watching the leaves shift in color. Below, on the cobblestone path, students laughed about weekend parties. On my desk sat a work schedule, an internship application I'd just downloaded, and a photo frame with my grandmother's handwriting inside. She didn't give me an easy road. She gave me tools: a shovel, a hand-drawn map, and a voice to keep me from being swallowed by polite silence. She didn't save me. She gave me the strength to save myself. I touched the glass frame gently. Outside, the wind picked up, but I was steady enough not to be carried away anymore. November came with a chill in the air and golden leaves scattered across campus. I was shelving books in the library when my phone vibrated, a message from an unknown number. I'm sorry, Evelyn, it took me a long time to text. Please read it all before you delete. I stared at the screen for a few seconds, then opened it. Dante moved out last month. He said he'd never dated anyone like me, someone who only demanded and gave nothing back. I begged him to stay, and ended up becoming someone I didn't even recognize. Mom said it was the price I had to pay, but I think this is just the consequence. I sat down, zoning out from the sound of printers, keyboards, and group meetings nearby. I saw the post you wrote. It was shared in a group for women who've been manipulated by family. They called you brave. And me? I read every line like I was looking at a reflection of myself, the version that crushed you all those years. No excuses, no request for forgiveness, just full ownership. I scrolled to the last line. I don't expect your forgiveness. I just want you to know that I understand what I destroyed. I set the phone down. The warmth in the room seemed to disappear, not from cold, but from memories flooding back. Birthday dinners where I cleared the table while others toasted. Rushed gifts, bought only after Ashley had everything she needed. I didn't reply. The following week, the library received a volunteer application from an unfamiliar address. Sender, Ashley Monroe. Current residence, basement of her former in-laws' home in Evanston. Note: I want to start over, even if it means shelving books. News from home reached me faster than any staff memo. Mom had moved in with Aunt Clara in Phoenix after the bank repossessed the house. Dad deleted his social media. Rumors said he was attending a support group for alcohol recovery. None of them contacted me, except for one email from Mom. Are you doing okay? I know I don't have the right to ask, but I read your speech at the Emerson seminar. You were right. Real family doesn't demand silence in exchange for love. I didn't delete the email and didn't respond either. That evening, I was folding up a stack of scholarship documents for the next semester, the desk lamp casting a warm glow on the photo frame of Grandma Lucille sitting on my study table. Her face still looked gently lit, peaceful, just like the last time I saw her in the hospital. Back then I used to think the dead were the ones who gave up. Now I understand. Some people leave only to hand us the weapons we need to stop getting lost. A new message came in from Brian. Want to speak at a Cambridge panel on healing from family trauma? They've got a guest slot. The organizer read your piece. I replied, sure, let's see if anyone notices that the girl they once called invisible is now teaching others how to stand up. The talk was held in a small hall. Wooden chairs, soft lighting, every seat filled. I didn't stand on a stage. I sat among the crowd and shared a small part of my story, a part without rage, without blame, only truth. Afterwards, someone handed me a piece of handwritten paper. I used to be the older sister. My sibling is Evelyn. I folded the note and slipped it into my pocket. No reply needed. But there was something deeply familiar about being seen through the words of a stranger. That weekend, I returned to the small apartment I'd rented near campus. Not big, but filled with natural light and quiet enough to write. On the dining table sat a box from the post office. Sender, Ashley. There was no letter inside, just a worn copy of The Bell Jar, spine cracked, and on the second page, you don't have to forgive. But if you've ever seen little Evelyn cry alone at night, then believe this. Your sister, the one who once turned away, is learning how not to anymore. I gently touched the page. That last line didn't make me cry. It made me realize that sometimes forgiveness isn't a gift you give others. It's the way you finally set down the stone you no longer need to carry. I placed the book on the shelf, among the titles that helped me survive. Some ruins can't be rebuilt the same way, but something new can grow, stronger, steadier, needing no old foundation to stay upright. One December afternoon, I found an ivory envelope tucked at the bottom of Grandma Lucille's wooden box. Thin paper, familiar slanted handwriting, a slight shake to the pen strokes, but still as neat as everything she ever did. The words on the front read, "Only open once you've chosen to stand by yourself." I sat by the window, pale light spilling through the foggy glass. My hands trembled as I opened the letter. My dearest Evelyn, if you're reading this, it means you're no longer silent. It means you've refused to be a soft landing for those who always need someone else to fall on, without ever standing up themselves. They'll call you cruel, they'll cry, they'll throw numbers, blame, even beg. But sweetheart, justice isn't revenge. It's letting people taste the consequences of their own choices. I can't walk beside you forever, but I can do one thing: protect your right to be free. And you've done it, you've become your own hero. That last line tightened my throat, not from pain, but from the sense that I had finally been seen exactly the way she had always seen me. The clock read 8 o'clock. I folded the letter and placed it in a glass frame beside my bed. My internship interview with the local NPR station would begin at 9:30. In my suitcase were the project plans and media kit I'd pulled 2 all-nighters to finish. No one helped me prepare, and no one had the power to ruin it anymore. During the interview, I didn't tell my story like a victim. I talked about pushing through family pressure to get an education, how a person can be wounded by the ones they love most, and still learn not to let the wounds define them. The project coordinator jotted down a note and smiled. Someone taught you how to speak truth without blame. I nodded. Someone gave me the tools I needed, not hollow advice. As I left the building, a call came in from my father's number. The screen lit up. I watched it ring 3 times, then let it go silent. Not because I hated him, but because he still hadn't learned how to apologize without strings attached. Life isn't a rough draft you can erase and rewrite whenever you mess up. Some mistakes you carry as part of memory, but we get to decide not to let them drag us backward. Back at the dorm, I found a package at my door, a small box from an old bookstore in Vermont. Grandma Lucille's favorite fall stop. Inside was a reprint of To Kill a Mockingbird, its spine freshly bound, but on the first page was a line in purple ink. For Evelyn. Never let anyone make you shrink so they can feel taller. No signature, but I knew exactly who sent it. The next week, I was selected as the lead communications assistant for the university's Women in Voice event. This year's theme: no more stepping back. I didn't hide backstage anymore. I walked up to the podium and looked out at rows of unfamiliar, yet not distant, faces. People waiting for someone to say what they hadn't yet been able to. I opened my talk with, "Someone once told me, no one is born to serve the selfishness of others." Back then, I thought it was just comfort. Now I know. It was survival instruction. After the talk, I received a thank you note from a senior psychology student. He wrote, "Today I chose myself instead of continuing to please a family that's never seen me." I printed that letter and pinned it to my bulletin board. Not out of pride, but to remember. To remember that forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting everything. Forgiveness doesn't ask us to return to the places that broke us. Forgiveness is when we can look at the pain and know it no longer holds us captive. They call what I did intentional cruelty, but I call it justice. Not the kind written in law books, but the kind a girl has to write herself, in ink made of blood, tears, and resolve. Evelyn's story isn't just about reclaiming a tuition fund. It's a testament to the inner strength of someone brave enough to protect their own worth. In real life, there are thousands of Evelyns. People overlooked by their families, sacrificed for someone else's bad priorities. But justice doesn't come from revenge. It comes when they choose to step out of the cycle of pain. Evelyn didn't let suffering define her life. She didn't just survive, she lived truthfully, and that's real freedom. What do you think of Evelyn's choices? Should she have forgiven them or stood her ground? Share your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to follow the channel for more powerful, heartfelt stories about family and finding your voice.